I'm just curious, have you ever gone to the gym ready for action, and when you get there, you feel completely overwhelmed, lost, confused, don't know where to begin?
Every time.
Every time?
Every time.
Okay.
Every time.
What weight do you start with?
Right.
What's the movement like? Am I doing it right?
The first time I went to the gym, I went so hard that I felt like I was going to throw up.
With so much fitness advice out there, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're doing it all wrong. And if that's you, you're not alone. A recent study published in the Journal of Physical Activity and Health found that over 60% of women feel confused or misinformed about exercise and nutrition. And that confusion can actually hold us back from reaching our goals. But science also shows that knowledge is power. Women who receive clear, evidence-based guidance are twice as likely to stick with a fitness or health routine and see real results. So today, we're cutting through the noise and giving the clarity you deserve. No pressure, no perfection. Just simple truths and a fresh way forward. Which brings me to our guest, Greg Burwell, the founder of Zero Sweat Fitness. Greg, welcome. We're going to talk about your passion, the movement revolution.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, ladies, we're going to discuss today something that is probably something that will resonate with most women, and that is a lack of knowledge. So I'm just curious, have you ever gone to the gym ready for action, and when you get there, you feel completely overwhelmed, lost, confused, don't know where to begin?
Every time.
Every time?
Every time.
Okay.
Every time. It gets a little easier every time, but especially in the beginning, it was very intimidating.
What is it? Is it that there's equipment there, or is it just that you're like, where do I begin? There's cardio, there's flexibility, what am I supposed to do?
It's all of it, especially when I started Fitness Take One the first time when I was like 19 years old, 20. I didn't have a trainer, I didn't have anyone. I just kind of went to the gym.
Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we go to the gym because the internet says to, and then it's healthy. So I went there, and I didn't know how to use any of the equipment, so I just walked on the treadmill. Or the first time I went to the gym, I went so hard that I felt like I was going to throw up. So then I went and
oh, no progression.
Yeah.
It talks about progression a lot.
Yeah, 0 to 100, and didn't have any coaching. So that turned me off, and I didn't go back for a long time.
Who wants to throw up?
Yeah, nobody. Not me.
Right.
Not my goal.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge.
Not knowing how to use the equipment, not listening to my body cues either, of the difference between getting outside your comfort zone and your body telling you that it needs to break and stop.
Mm-hmm. Or that was too much.
Yeah.
How about you, Dawn?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I remember when I joined a gym and I walked in and I assumed that someone was going to come over like customer service and just say, here's, right, roll out the red carpet and here's how you use these the equipment. And so it was overwhelming, it was intimidating, especially with the large machines. Mm-hmm. What weight do you start with?
Right.
What's the movement like? Mm-hmm. Am I doing it right? And then that's how
are the machines even where you should be?
Right. And I remember pulling down, I was doing a lap pull, and I remember I was doing it in front of my face instead of back. And it was embarrassing and it hurt. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And so you were doing it, and this is a hot topic for Greg. I happen to know this because there's a lack of knowledge out there. So can we just jump in really quickly, Greg, or can you jump in? The lat pull down. Can we detour for a second, or is that?
Sure. I mean, the lat pull down, a lot of people mistakenly think they need to pull behind the neck. Okay, the problem with that is you have a tendency to hit what we call the closed pack position, where it is most uncomfortable for your shoulder joint because it's hitting in range. And so the better way to do the movement, if you're wanting to work the lat muscles, or the muscles that flare out just under your armpit, is to go to the front, always to the front towards the collarbone. That's the preferred way to do it.
She was actually doing it right then.
Yes, she was. Stay to the front. And here's the thing now, there's such a thing as contraindicated, meaning things that you shouldn't do. If, however, let's say you are a gymnast you really can't say what they're doing is contraindicated because we need there's such a demand placed upon the joints that you have to do whatever it takes to get that.
In which case there would be a progression.
Right, there would be a progression, but most of us aren't gymnasts, and so the preferred way to do it would be towards the front.
See, that's what I needed.
Exactly. That's why I was like, well, this is the perfect episode to stop and have him talk, because it is, we don't know. We see some images, and the sad thing is these images we see on Instagram or what other social media platform you're on getting your expert advice is that it might not be expert advice. And something Dawn said earlier today that I was like, exactly, one size doesn't fit all. So what, this expert online is saying is the end all be all might not be my end all be all, might actually hurt me.
That is absolutely correct. And another problem with the medium that we're accessing is it doesn't respond to you, so it can't really make adaptations to something you may be doing in error. You're trying to replicate a movement, but it's not talking back to you, so it can't make adjustments to what you're doing.
Yeah. And I feel like this next question I'm going to ask is a little bit complex, but what's one thing you think you wish someone would have told you much sooner in your fitness journey? Like, what piece of information do you wish you had known much earlier?
Would you like to go first?
Mostly about the eating habits, that if you don't eat enough calories, your body will shut down and go into starvation mode. That would have been
very helpful.
So nice. And so I did it for so many years too, where I over the long term, would just eat like less than 500 calories for like a long amount of time.
Right.
And that always made me like gain weight right away when I did start eating again, or even if I didn't, like I would still plateau for a long time. And I was really young. I was a teenager and I was doing modeling and like I did beauty pageants, and there's a lot of like
pressure,
toxic, behaviors that are encouraged in that.
It's the same in the ballet world.
Yes, I know that. That's why the trainer I work with now has a dance background. He's a dancer and he trains dancers and he does fitness and nutrition for them. So I specifically wanted someone who had a background knowledge with that so that I wouldn't go into starvation mode. So he's the first person that told me that that was a thing. I thought, wow, it's so interesting that people still like push that and like
even after they have the knowledge.
Yes, or like no, just do it anyway because like we need you this size by this time. So that would have been the best thing to hear.
Yes, sooner for sure.
I would say balance, because I remember when balance. Yeah, I know. What is balance? Can we achieve that? And so specifically for me, with my experience, it's always been at the beginning when I was younger, it was like, okay, I'm just going to do cardio and just do step class and just do cardio, and not realizing that you need to also incorporate resistance training.
Yeah.
And we were talking, social media now, there's so many different types of information and it makes it more complex and confusing.
Yep.
And so I think it's a combination of balance. So balance what works for you and your lifestyle, and then balance on what works for your body, which is, for me, I notice it's some sort of cardio and resistance training. But I didn't know that when I was younger.
Right. And
interesting, Dawn. Excuse me, Jamie. When you said balance, I'm thinking about standing on one leg. I'm not thinking about life balance, but I'm with you.
And my brain went somewhere else. My brain was thinking like life-work balance, So
Yes.
when she started expounding on like the different pieces of fitness, I was like, oh yeah, there's that too.
But lots of definitions for balance.
But there's also too the work-life balance and putting stress and on trying to get everything done. Yeah. And knowing that sometimes you do not get any instruction on how do you achieve work-life balance. You're just trying to check mark and get everything done. You're trying to exercise, you're trying to get your work done if you have a family. So how do you incorporate? And the one thing earlier on in my life, it was all or nothing. So you get stressed out, but...
Were you a dancer too? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Nope, just being a woman, right?
Right, just being right. And so, but there's little things that you can do, or if you park your car far away and get your steps in. Instead of taking the elevator, take the steps up and down. That is incorporating fitness. And so, but it was always shared that you're only doing fitness if you're in a gym or if you're taking long walks outside, but there's other ways to incorporate it. So that's another part of balance as well.
It sounds like you're speaking about zero sweat fitness.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I would argue that zero sweat fitness is balance. Like it is bringing that piece to our fitness or our health, because we can do it all, I guess. I know that's probably the wrong way to say it, but we can be at work and still working on our health.
Right.
Whereas before it just felt like a choice.
Right.
You either get your work done or you take care of yourself.
Right.
So that balance wasn't there. So I feel like zero sweat's a big piece of that balance. So what's one thing about fitness or health, where you started a routine and it was very popular. Everybody's got their success stories and you're like, oh my gosh, this must be the answer. And then you start doing it and you realize either it hurts you or it's not working for you or it just isn't for you. Like, have you guys tried something and quickly learned it's not for you?
Yes. So this is for me. If there's others that didn't like it, there's no offense. It's just for me. But HIIT fitness, when you're doing that constant spurts, that just wasn't for me. And the reason was, it wasn't that I couldn't do it, but the one thing also that I learned is if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. Yeah. And I didn't enjoy it. And I noticed that where there were instances where there was quick bursts and there was, as I got older, pressure on my knees or my elbow or my neck. I remember with my neck, it would hurt quite a bit when I was doing certain weights. It just didn't work. But I just was trying to press through because I was told this is going to get you great results quickly. And
at what cost?
Exactly. And then so I just moved. I transitioned to something else that I much more enjoyed. But yeah, that was an example.
Now, Dawn, could I inject on that? HIIT, for those who don't know, it's an acronym for high intensity interval training. And I employ it personally because the whole idea, when people hear cardiovascular, it's the lung heart combination. But too often we think in terms of cardiovascular as just something, we're on a treadmill for 45 minutes or an hour, we're on an elliptical and we're just getting through the process. I think in terms of, as a professional, of cardiovascular is an improvement in their cardiovascular health. Now that can be achieved through high intensity interval training. And in fact, I love a 4-minute workout where you're 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Get it over with, because I cannot stand doing cardio activity. It just drives me crazy. And for people who want to use it as a mode of calorie burning and weight loss, it's not very good at that. It really isn't, because again, the amount of calories that are expended versus the time it takes, it doesn't make sense. So I always encourage people to manage what you're eating and how you're eating, and do not rely upon cardio as anything other than a way of improving your fitness, overall fitness level, and in your heart and how it relates to intake of oxygen, etc., and being more efficient that way, but not as a vehicle for dropping weight.
I think that's profound, because I don't know a woman who has not, at least at some point in her life, believed that that is exactly what it is for, and still to this day. And in fact, Greg, if you remember when I first met you, I know it was a long time ago, but that's all I did was cardio. And you were one of the strength trainers in that fitness facility. But I would get on there religiously as a ballet dancer, an hour every day, ponytail back and forth on the elliptical, checking that box, thinking this is how I look like I'm supposed to look for ballet.
Right. And I should also add to that excessive cardio is catabolic. Excessive cardio is catabolic, meaning that that hard-fought muscle or lean body tissue diminishes because we're overdoing it. And so we're working against ourselves with excessive cardio. I mean, if you look at someone who runs a marathon and compare that to someone who runs 100 meters a sprint, there's a drastic difference in the body. You know, one is really overtrained and doesn't look quite healthy, and the other body looks healthy. And so that's probably a more apt analogy of the difference. One is overtrained because if you're doing a marathon, you're overdoing it, and you are going to burn lean body tissue. You have to.
Yeah,
So.
there's that information piece. I feel fortunate. I think I was maybe 20 when Greg was explaining this to me. And the reason why Greg and I had that conversation was because I had a bone density test at that age. At the gym, they brought in somebody to test your bone density. And I'm thinking I'm this fit person, young person, because I'm a ballerina. And my bone density test came back poor for a 65-year-old. And I was just in shock. And I remember, long story short, Greg sort of kind of learned that why I was in a funky mood. And when he found out that it was the bone density, he was like, let's have a conversation. And he brought me supplements, but then also addressed exactly what he just said. And that is all of that cardio is probably working against me. Nutrition was a component of it too, much like what you were saying. You know, there are people in your ear telling you to eat as little as possible, yet all of these demands are on your body. So there were a lot of factors on it, but I'm grateful that I did learn that piece of advice early on about weight resistance. And in fact, it really did propel not only my body and how I felt, but my career. It definitely made me a better dancer. So we're taught to kind of fear as women, I think, resistance training in that I remember hearing the message, it's going to make you bulky. In fact, my ballet teacher said that. Stay away from weights. You don't need to get bulky. Well, I never got bulky and I love weights.
I know. It would take a lot. Another example of misinformation and not eating enough plus overdoing it on cardio. And people wonder why people crash out.
Yeah.
And lose, and have health issues. I think eating disorders is the number one out of all the mental health issues, the most deadly, even over drug addiction and everything else like that. At least with women,
and not talked about very much.
Yeah, because it hurts your body over time. It ruins a lot of your body.
Yeah, it's silent but deadly.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes. And it's normalized too. It's getting better.
For sure.
It's so normalized. Normal doesn't equal healthy. Just because everyone does it or so many people are used to that because of whatever, diet culture and things like that. Normal isn't healthy necessarily.
Yeah, so true. How do you filter? We have all this information coming at us, right? So we're talking about how women go to the gym or whatever their fitness choice is, and they show up and they just feel like they don't know what the answer is. How do you filter through all of that? And maybe that's a question for Greg. I don't know. How do you guys filter through all the noise to figure out what's right for you?
It's difficult. I will admit I'm a scroller. I scroll through Instagram and Facebook and I get all the information. And then I'm like, oh, this looks great. This looks great. But then I just rely on my personal trainer to tell me what is the responsible steps to do, because anyone that that you trust, I think, is going to be the best piece of information or provide you the best information because they know you and you know them. Otherwise, instead of just going, it's hard because that information's coming at you. You get this dopamine hit because you're looking at it and it looks good and it's something new and you get excited and maybe you try and it's not. And sometimes those people who are sharing that are not the experts. So I think it's just going to someone you trust and who knows you, and then it feels right. Yeah, I know that's a very generalized statement, but I think that's the most responsible way.
No, I agree with that, Dawn. And it has to be science-based. In other words, sometimes people will say, oh, this is the best exercise for doing abs or the best for that. Well, that's not true. It all depends upon you as an individual, your body, your articulations, your joints, and how that works. It may not be the best exercise for you. So if someone says you have to do this exercise because it's the best, that's not someone you should trust, because there's no one right answer for everybody. It doesn't fit everyone. And so if it's something like personal training, that's why it's called personal training, because it should be specific to the individual and not just some random thoughts that people have about fitness or what's trending with me. So if it doesn't feel good for your body is telling you not to do it, and don't do it.
I think that's like a mic drop for me. And I'll say one of the things that you've taught me, Greg, over the years is that your body isn't the same day to day. So although, and I guess I should have learned this as a dancer, you can come in one day as a dancer and knock off, a quadruple pirouette one day, and the next day you're falling out of a single, it feels like. So you're not a robot. We are not robots. And what we can get out of our body on Monday is not necessarily what we're going to get out of our body Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And one thing that I have really appreciated about your knowledge that you share, Greg, is that you meet me always where I'm at. And I think if your fitness professional or expert can't do that and adapt to you on any given day, then that might not be the expert for you. Because, like I said, we aren't robots.
Yeah, in life is undulating, ups and downs and waves. And so we've got to accommodate that with how we feel. We spoke about hormonal issues, and that's a wave too. So we have to adapt and adjust according to how we feel. We cannot go at 100% every day. It doesn't work, okay? Athletes have to periodize. They cannot go at 100% all the time. You burn out. So you have to undulate or adjust levels of intensity to accommodate various factors.
It's true. Well, I think we could all agree that it is much, because we're also so much individuals, it's a journey.
Right.
It's learning, getting information. Hopefully you're getting the right information and discerning which one is right, which one is not. But it's a journey. And Greg, what advice would you give to someone who is at that point where they're feeling overwhelmed and confused and lost? What advice would you give them in setting out on this journey of figuring out what works best for them?
I think it's helpful to get a professional and someone that you can trust and feel comfortable with. And that comfort is important. Again, there are a lot of people in the, quote, fitness industry, but not a lot of them are necessarily competent to help you. So you get a good read soon about the person and what their capabilities are. If you feel uncomfortable initially about, or someone tells you, well, this is what I use to get in shape, you don't want that, because what they're doing will work for them, but not necessarily for you, number one. And number two, people who are genetically gifted can do just about anything and the body will respond. So whether they're doing it right or they're doing it incorrectly, it doesn't matter, and they look great. So just to go ahead and do a visual cue as to how someone looks has nothing to do with their knowledge level. I mean, Angelo Dundee did not look like a fabulous trainer for Muhammad Ali. He was in fabulous shape, but he had the knowledge. So you can't just go ahead and judge that book by the cover.
I think that I'm resonating with my former career in ballet, but you're hired based upon the career you had most often. You danced with, New York City Ballet, or you danced with San Francisco. You danced with a major professional company, so instantly you are the teacher when you get to that point in your career. And sadly, a lot of times those aren't the people who have the skill to teach and to get different bodies to understand how to use the techniques in their bodies. They might have been, just as you said, genetically gifted, and but they have no idea how to communicate to you how to get your body where it needs to be. So I think that can be said in a lot of different industries.
Right, and to add to that, a lot of people have misconceptions about PEDs and
What's a PED?
a performance-enhancing drug, and people will say things, throw things out. Oh, he's doing steroids, or he's doing this, he's doing that, whatever. But they miss one key component. For example, Lance Armstrong, we found out that he was doing performance-enhancing drugs. True, but also true is Lance Armstrong is an exceptional, phenomenal athlete. And just because he is doing drugs does not mean that the average person can do the same thing he can. No way. It's ridiculous. So, yes, athletes do enhance, and the majority of them do, if we're telling the truth. But they're still exceptional creatures and athletes, and they're exceptional in what they do. Okay? But we don't want to distinguish, we want to make the distinction between an athlete and performance and fitness and health. They're two separate entities, okay? So we don't necessarily want to train like the athlete because it may not be the healthiest for us as an individual, but these people
necessary.
No, and these people are getting paid to do this, so there's a definite distinction.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if we were getting paid to be healthy, we would all be much healthier.
Amen.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That would
Good
be my
point.
Right. So, and a lot of people, I know your advice is to seek out a professional, someone that you trust, but what I love about Zero Sweat Fitness most, Greg, is that anyone can do it. It doesn't cost a thing. It doesn't even cost you time. It doesn't even make you sweat.
Right.
Zero sweat.
Which is great.
It is amazing. Zero Sweat Fitness. So I think that would be something that I would want to just remind everyone, is because you may have listened to this and thought, I can't afford a personal trainer or a professional to help me with I don't even have time for that. No worries, because I think that's the whole point of this movement revolution, is going back to simple things that can be incorporated in your everyday life, no matter what you do. And so that being said, Greg, can we talk about one of the simple movements you have taught us is a belly button press. And it's sort of an isometric thing where you can stabilize your core. And just as I'm talking now, I'm pressing my belly button back towards my spine and holding for 5 seconds and then relaxing. And I can do this throughout my day while I'm talking to you. I can be on my laptop. I can be in my car driving. I can be in an airplane. I can be anywhere, and I can do this. I can be standing. So
that is an awesome thing to do, and it creates awareness of your body, number one, and number two, it does the same thing that a Spanx would do as well, or some controlled device would do. It's funny, now that we are in tennis season with the French Opening taking place, and we saw the ladies play yesterday, but people have asked, they said, well, why is it that the women in the majors only play 3 sets, whereas the men play 5? But what actually happens, if we go back to history, we know that when women were wearing corsets, they used to play 5, but they would start fainting after 3 sets of wearing a corset. And so they reduced it, and they've never changed it. And so it's always been 3, 5. It's
so
just
dark.
a point of interest.
well,
But
we have our modern day Spanx now.
yeah.
So don't worry,
those.
Right.
still faints. Don't worry, guys.
But another aspect of a component of that is to, I call it a cough. And that's when you cough, let's say 5 times in succession, and then hold it, and then start breathing again. So have you ever gotten really sick where you had a flu or a bad cold, and you're coughing all the time, and then your abs feel like they're so sore? You're like, my goodness, this is crazy. Well, that is just one way of doing it, because you're contracting your abs so much. And so another way of doing it is a cough, but I'd be careful in public because people will think you're sick,
Yeah.
COVID or something. And
Not
so,
in the office.
Right.
Everybody runs.
Do it outside.
but if you're in your car, you're commuting or something like that, it's an excellent way to cough, and you get more control of your area, your core, by trying that. So
I
that's
can
another
remember
movement.
being terribly sick one time and coughing for a long period of time. And I do have this memory of going, wow, my abs look great. Because I was sick for a really long time. And I hate to admit this in public, but I do remember as the cough was going away, I was like, oh no. Oh, this is my abs. That's messed up, right? but I guess we can still use that.
Some
cough.
benefits of being ill.
You didn't get sick on purpose. You happen to get sick in that.
There was a nice benefit to it.
Silver
Always
lining.
look on the bright side, right?
Right.
So pulling the belly button in and a nice little, what did you say, transverse? Did you say transverse abdominis? Or maybe I heard you say
Abdominis is, the muscle we're talking about when we're engaged in a cough, the transverse abdominis. The abs muscles are used too, but it's definitely a way to engage transverse abdominis.
our genetic Spanx.
Yes,
Right.
that is
There we
true.
go.
So true, yes.
Spanx is Atlanta based.
Yes, it is. Go Spanx. We love you. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming and being willing to talk about this challenge that we face, which is a lack of knowledge, because it is something that we battle every day. And Greg, thank you so much for coming to talk about Zero Sweat Fitness and showing us that anyone can make improvements to their health and fitness without any sweat.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.